And welcome everybody again. And I'm going to start sharing the screen right now. And welcome you to the webinars and conversation cafe series of the Work That Reconnects Network. So these Work That Reconnects Network webinars and conversation cafes is a series that we offer almost every month, and they are full of conversations and interviews and activities for the Work That Reconnects facilitators and community. I want to introduce yourself today to the webinar and cafe with Della Duncan, Work That Reconnects Regenerative Livelihood Finances for the Great Turning. Della Duncan is a Work That Reconnects facilitator, is also a renegade economist, called renegade economist. You had to explain that, Della, what it means. She hosts the Upstream podcast, documentaries and interviews, including some of the most recent struggles. Our struggles are your struggles. Stories of Indigenous resistance and regeneration. She's also a right livelihood coach. We're going to explore what is that. A post-capitalist economics consultant, part of Fritjof Capra course team, lecturer and researcher at the California Institute of Integral Studies, Schumacher College, London School of Economics, and Gaia Education. So without much more about Della, I will want to invite you now to grounding. So let's, if you feel comfortable, you can close your eyes and just, relax your body. And we are going to share these 2 hours together and explore new ways of being in this world. We're going to explore new relationships to what we call economics, what we call livelihood. And we're going to explore what are the ways that we define our well-being around this world that is so different. It has so different meanings for different people, economics. We want to explore what our real needs are. What are the needs of our communities? What are our passions? And how much of what we do every day in our lives, in our livelihoods, is connected to the well-being, to the healing of our communities and our planet. I invite you to be open today to explore with joy, with curiosity, with compassion, new and different ways of being in this world, and embrace the great turning. Thank you. You can open your eyes. And we're going to start with Della. Della, it's all yours.
Thank you, and good to be with you all. Economics for the Great Turning. I want to start with a quote. This is a quote from Yanis Varoufakis, the former finance minister of Greece. He says, "We must understand that empowering citizens to speak authoritatively about the economy is a prerequisite for democracy and a precondition for the good society. There are no economic experts. There are experts when it comes to doing things like building a bridge. If we want to build a bridge, we can't do it democratically because the bridge could collapse and it would be a major tragedy. But the economy is the way in which we organize social power. Who has power over their lives and who doesn't? This is a question of how we run our society. This is a question of democracy. So if we were to accept that there is a group of economic experts and we have to defer to them when it comes to matters of economics, then effectively we accept oligarchy. So again, that's Yanis Varoufakis and empowering all of us to explore economics together and work towards an economic system that is more equitable and regenerative. So I'd love to hear what folks think and feel about economics. It's a funny phrase and interesting idea or concept that we have many different reactions to. So I want to invite us into a participatory activity. So this is for all of us to participate, to free flow our associations and our feelings, thoughts, and reactions in relation to this thing called economics. So first, maybe we stretch our fingers out, get them all loosened up, give your fingers a stretch. And if you open up the chat function at the bottom of your screen so that you have that chat function open and has it to everyone, we'll do a little activity, a little free association game together. So I'll give a practice round and then we'll go into some economic words. But first I want to offer a practice round word. So a fun word, a word to offer to you all. And then the invitation is for 30 seconds. We're just going to flow into the chat, our associations, thoughts and feelings and reactions to that word or phrase. There are no wrong answers here. All reactions are welcome. So again, I'll offer the word and then we'll just flow our feelings, thoughts, reactions to that word, just to get a sense of where we're at together on this call. So we'll start with a practice word again. We've got our fingers all ready to go, hands on the keyboard or on our phones. So the first word to flow our reactions to for the next 30 seconds. 1, 2, 3. Ice cream. Ice cream. Ice cream. Go ahead and let them flow. Words, feelings, thoughts. Beautiful. Keep letting them flow. Seeing that river, that waterfall of words relating to ice cream. Okay, last words. All right, beautiful. And let's close and go ahead and scroll back. And I'm just going to uplift some of them. I see a lot of yums. I see joy, many calories, some favorite flavors, summer, chocolate, peanut butter, sugar fruit, happy, scrumptious, a favorite, bubblegum, sweet, delicious, delight, beautiful. Thanks all. So let's shake that out. Shake off ice cream, shake out ice cream into our fingertips. Beautiful work, everyone. Great work. Another one. So that was our practice round. So another one, getting our thoughts and reactions towards the words or phrase. So the next word or phrase to offer to you at the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Work. 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 So letting that flow, that river, our feelings, our thoughts, reactions to work. Okay, and last words. Okay, and done. Last words, beautiful. So to give some of those that I saw, drudge, hard, actually many hards. A lot of people wrote hard. Necessary, tired, passion, calling, joy, office building, men in suits. Oh dear, tiring, life, pressure. I think we're creating a group poem here. Meaningful, service, anti-grind, weary, stress, fulfillment, stuck, tedious, love, inequality, hard, again, delightful, 9 to 5, purpose, heavy, good work, struggle, corrupted, devoted, jobs, exploitation, effort, curiosity, against it, play, necessary evil, stressful, pain, computer, connected, essential. No, it's Saturday, tasks, tension, important space to create, joy, collaboration, capitalism, challenge, willingness, connect, family. It was a long week, necessary, purpose. Beautiful. So let's shake that out, all of our thoughts and feelings towards work, shake that out of our fingers, out of our bodies. And let's hear another one. Our thoughts and reactions are word association to another word. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Money. Money. Letting that flow. Money. Our feelings, our thoughts, our first impressions, our associations. All thoughts and views are welcome. Money. Okay, and coming to an end there. Let's see what we have. Power, corrupted, thrive, separation, spiritual, societal creation, taboo topic, hard-earned, necessary, God, ruin, despair, fear, imbalance, play, survive, power, tension, desired, scarcity, banks and jails, fake currency, strategy, corrupt, beautiful images on Mexican currency, not the priority, unfair, source of so much pain, dollar bills, handcuffs, uncomfortable, out of reach, opportunity to share, so much value attached. What keeps us enslaved? Destruction, strong, confusing energy, blessing, inequality, not good at it. Pressure, necessary, illusion. Okay, let's shake that out. Shaking out money, shaking out the energy of money off of us. And we'll do one more, just one more. So again, our thoughts, words, reactions to another word, our last word. So the last word, 3, 2, 1. Economics. 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 Letting those words flow, those thoughts, those reactions, associations. Economics. And bringing that to a close, finishing up the words. Okay, I'll uplift some of them. A thing I studied because there was no business class. Nation states, finances, thwarted, flow and surge, drain and flow. Black magic, doesn't need to grow. Men with bow ties. College classes, power politics, boo. Patriarchy, unfair, corruption, stratification, out of reach, inequality, obscure, something I didn't study, creating a way to share, unfair, inequality, distorted God, easily manipulated, boring, false, sorcery, abused, politics, misunderstood, donut, supply and demand ignores externalities and our connection with one another, social, stuffy, coming to an end, fake, difficult, total construct, theory of money, theories, determinative, understanding, out of reach, human view of abundance, false science, out of control, a construct, bad news, complicated, filled with waste, need to change, donut, men, potential, bullshit, power, serious, solidarity, decisive, and disconnected with reality. Whew. So let's shake that out, our energy and thoughts around this topic, this theme of economics. Well, whatever it is that is your view or opinion of economics, it is welcome. And I am excited for us all to be here exploring an economics of the Great Turning, an economics for the Great Turning. So first, in order to go to some invitations for an economics of the Great Turning, let us explore what are the underlying values or principles of beliefs of mainstream economic thinking, of the industrial growth society economics, of economics of the great unraveling. What are the underlying principles and thoughts and views and beliefs that uphold the mainstream view of economics? So to help us get to that point, I want to offer a little bit around a really fun article. So there's an article called "Does Studying Economics Breed Greed?" Does studying economics breed greed? And this is an article by a man named Dr. Adam Grant. And Silvia is going to put it in the chat for us, but we'll also link to all these resources at the end of the call. So does studying economics breed greed by Dr. Adam Grant? Here's what he found in looking at this question. He found that economics teachers, professors, lecturers, economics teachers give the least amount of money to charity than professors or teachers in any other field. Economics professors, economics teachers give the least amount of money to charity, least charitable than professors or people of any other field. He found that altruism drops in importance of students who study economics. So students who study economics in university settings, he found that altruism, kindness, and compassion drop in importance to them as they go through their studies. They found this by looking at students all in the first year of university, and these are global studies. They found that they ranked values like helpfulness, honesty, and loyalty equal to their counterparts. But as they progressed in their economic studies, those values dropped as in importance to them. Another study that Dr. Adam Grant found was around whether people would return a lost envelope of money. So imagine you're perhaps in a hallway or in a building somewhere and you find this envelope and it has some money in it. What do? He found that those students studying economics were the least likely to turn in the envelope of lost money to the front desk or to alert someone that this envelope had been found. And this is especially interesting, economics students were the most likely to think all other people would do the same. The last study that I want to uplift is the study that he found that showed that even just thinking about mainstream economic thinking, even just being exposed to mainstream economic thinking, leads us to be far less empathetic, kind, and compassionate. He found this through a study that showed a group of business leaders and organizational leaders. It took one group and they exposed them to mainstream economic rhetoric and words, just gave them lots of documents to look at and read, and then had them write a letter to an employee conveying bad news, like they were being let go or transferred. Then another group, a control group, they exposed them to neutral words, no economic language, no mainstream economic thinking or theory, and then had them write a letter conveying bad news to an employee. Both sets of letters were coded for empathy, kindness, and compassion. And this is how they found that those folks who had been exposed to mainstream economic words and rhetoric and theory were far less kind, compassionate, and empathetic than those who were exposed to neutral words. And if you're worried that after this time together that you'll be left feeling far less kind, compassionate, empathetic, fear not. We are going to be rethinking and reclaiming and exploring a different type of economics. But just want to offer that as an interesting perspective of, does studying economics breed greed? And so I want to ask now, and I saw some folks already started this in the chat, what are the assumptions underlying mainstream economic thinking? Let's unveil them. Let's make them visible. What are the assumptions of the growth industrial society economics that we may read in a business newspaper or we may hear in political elites? So what is the beliefs, the values, or the assumptions underlying mainstream economic thinking? So for this, feel free to post in the chat, or you can raise your hand using the reaction button and I'll bring you in to the conversation. So I see that someone says the world is made up of objects, right? That we are separate from nature, that nature can be commodified, and that nature is objectified as well, that nature is objects. The universe is a collection of objects. Corporations have rights like humans. Competition is necessary. There's no such thing as a free lunch. That we must lift ourselves up by our bootstraps, that profit is the driver of our economic system. Unlimited growth, and paradoxically that markets revolve around scarcity. So scarcity and growth, and this interesting paradoxical relationship between them. Growth at all costs, right? That growth is the goal of the economy. Unlimited growth, blind growth, constant growth. money is real, that it's every person for themselves, growth is a must, the environment doesn't matter, self-interest, right? I'm seeing a lot about unlimited growth. Meritocracy, if you have more money, it is merited. You did a better job. The need to generate more and more demand, right? Corporations are obliged to shareholders to maximize profits. Everything has a price. People become commodified, that it's a system based on white supremacy. Work ethic, so that worth ethic is that things aren't given, they're rightfully earned, that winners take all, that self-made is a thing, that time is money, that the invisible hand allocates resources effectively and efficiently. Beautiful. A lot of great things here. Anything but capitalism fails. Money equals security, that we always want more materialistically. The world can be expressed in numbers. Costs are not paid if you externalize them. No other system is possible. Wow. This is an excellent, excellent list, everyone. Based on colonization, Milton Friedman is a gospel speaker. Relationship work is worthless. Separation is necessary. Right? Corporations are people, time is linear. A gift is never a gift. Unpaid labor is worthless. We're in late stage capitalism, and wealth is closer to God. Wow. So let's shake that out. Let's shake out all those underlying assumptions of the growth industrial society, all of those things that we were able to bring forth so easily, and that sometimes we can even catch ourselves believing or enacting even possibly. So shaking that out. So I want to move now to the invitations. So invitations for an economics of the great turning. So I have 5 invitations for us all. They're definitely not exhaustive. There are many, many more. So I want to offer these, and then we're going to go into breakout rooms to make sense of these invitations in our own lives and to add to them. So I want to offer them to you now. So invitations for an economics of the great turning. Okay. I'm just going to share my screen here to give you some words to look at in case that's supportive for folks. Okay, so the first invitation of an economics for the great turning is to rethink economics. Rethink economics. So rethinking economics, one of the ways that we can look at this is the root of economics. So economics coming from Greek, oikos, nomos, oikos meaning home, nomos meaning management of our home, economics as the managing of our home. So who's responsible for the managing of our home? It certainly isn't just economics or economists, whatever that means, but perhaps we all play a role in managing our home. And also we have the view that if economics first was thought of as the domestic home, the familial home space and the management of that home, and then brought into the nation state, the country home, that now 21st century economics, as we recognize our interconnectedness and our systemic view of life, that in economics of the managing of our home today must be planetary home managing. So one way to rethink economics is to return it to its root and to look at what does it mean to manage our home. And related to that, another word very connected, economics, oikos nomos, is oikos, right? Ecology, oikos logos, which is ecology, knowledge of our home. So Satish Kumar, who is the founder of Schumacher College and one of the lead people of Resurgence magazine, he once visited the London School of Economics, and he walked in and said, how can you call yourself a school of economics without a department of ecology? How can you seek to manage our home without deeply knowing our home? So rethinking economics is also returning to an ecology, an importance of ecology, to knowing our home, to be able to contribute to its flourishing. Another way to rethink economics is to return economics to what it was when Adam Smith, brought up the discipline of economics in academia. He was a moral philosopher. Adam Smith was a moral philosopher, and so economics was in the realm of moral philosophy. Today, economics has been reduced more and more to a mathematics or a science. It's become increasingly mathematized or scientized, and I saw this in some of the comments. That's not to say that there's not a beauty and an art to math and science, but to say when we reduce economics to the quantifiable and to the graphable, and we no longer interrogate or question the underlying assumptions and principles, then we give kind of the discipline too much strength to it, and we no longer have that moral philosophy realm. We can no longer question or critique the underlying assumptions. So to rethink economics is to return economics to the realm of moral philosophy, to question it, to challenge the underlying assumptions, to investigate them. So I want to offer that too. So rethinking economics, one last one, rethinking economics, is to see economics not something as outside of us. Some folks wrote dry or boring. It can often be the experience of economics. But what if we saw economics not something as abstract or outside of us, but something that we participate in and co-create every day, that we embody and that we practice and that we perform economics in our day-to-day lives? And when we think this way, then we can think of all the ways that we participate and co-create in alternative economics. When we're sharing, that's the sharing economy, a gift, the gift economy, walking into a worker cooperative, the cooperative or solidarity economy. So there's many different economic systems that we participate in and co-create together. So what does that offer by way of rethinking economics? So rethinking economics, the first invitation for calling in an economics of the Great Turning. So the next invitation of an economics for the Great Turning is to design in harmony with nature, design in harmony with nature. So this, on our 3 areas of the Great Turning, this is the Gaian structures, the ecological design element. So there's so many beautiful offerings and inspirations in this area. One of them, if there's any permaculture folks listening in, the permaculture principle of waste equals food, waste equals food. What would it mean to design in harmony with nature and to bring in a circular economics to our economic system making? So a waste equals food into our economics. And there's so many beautiful examples of this around the world. But also, what would it look like to design fungi economics in our currency and our money ways? Like what if we got inspiration from the mycorrhiza of fungi to distribute wealth and money to where it's needed? Or if we got inspiration from water, currents, to why we want water to flow. We don't want water to pool off into pools and become stagnant. We want it to flow to where it's needed. So what if we designed our economics in harmony with nature? This is also a space where we can move from ownership to stewardship, from ownership to usership. That's another one. Like, what would it mean to have more share shops or, like a library of things, right? But to design in harmony with nature that way. This is also a space of valuing nature, and not just valuing nature for its usefulness to humans, its usefulness to the commodifiable and the quantifiable, but an intrinsic valuing of nature. A good friend of mine, Leanne Pha, she says, the sign of a healthy economy should be a drinkable river. The sign of a healthy economy should be a drinkable river. So this gets into the realm of rights of nature, right? That whole world. So what would it mean? What would it look like to design in harmony with nature, to practice the 7th generation activity and the council of all beings in our economic decision making, to bring in other voices to that? The next one to bring in, the next invitation for an economics of the Great Turning, is to change the goal. So I know systems thinking is near and dear and central to Work That Reconnects. And Della Meadows, one of the great systems thinkers, offers us 12 leverage points, places to intervene in a system, a very powerful, beautiful essay. And at the top of the leverage points, ways to change a system, one of the highest leverage points of change is to change the goal. So changing the goal of our economic system, so many of us were able to quickly identify growth as the goal of our economic systems, growth in our systemic or collective larger scale systems as growth of GDP, gross domestic product, but also in our organizations, businesses, the growth of profit. So changing the goal. And I have good news here as well, that there are so many movements and people with many alternative offerings of changing the goal that are much more in alignment with the Great Turning, much more in alignment with flourishing of people and the planet. So we have the Genuine Progress Index. We have several countries, including New Zealand and Scotland and Wales, that are abandoning GDP and moving towards something more aligned with well-being. We have gross national happiness from the Kingdom of Bhutan, centering a happiness that is related, a holistic sense of happiness around people and the natural world. We also have the donut, and I was happy to see the donut come up several times in folks' share. So if you're not familiar with the donut, here it is. Here's what folks were referring to. This is the donut. This is an alternative goal of the economy, an alternative goal of the economy. The inner part of the donut, the whole of the donut, is what's called the social foundation. So this is the meeting of our human needs, so that we have a need for clean drinking water, for adequate healthy food, for access to healthcare that's quality, for education, income and work, peace and justice, social equity, housing, networks, energy, right? So those are the meeting of the human needs, which make up the social foundation. And you can, in your mind, you can think to whether you're in a town or a city or a state or country, you can think to one of those places and feel into what would it look and feel like to have that social foundation met? And how is your place in the world meeting these needs or not? Where is there still room for improvement and where is there abundance? And then the outer rim of the donut, the outer side, the outer area, are the 9 planetary boundaries. So this is in relation to the ecological needs. So the ecological needs, such as our planet can sustain some change and some impact in these areas, but there are tipping points, places beyond which it will tip us into alternative states. So chemical pollution, nitrogen, biodiversity loss, air pollution. So these represent the planet's needs. So the donut, as an alternative goal of an economy, says, what if the goal of the economy was to meet the human needs of those in the place or in the economy within consideration of the needs of the planet, of the needs of the bioregion, the watershed, the area. And so to get us within the donut, the actual donut part is called getting us within the safe and just space for humanity. So that is a economics for the Great Turning, the safe and just space for humanity. And how to do that, Kate Rayworth and the Donut Economics team offer that we need a regenerative and distributive economy. So this is another offering of changing the goal. And again, good news. There's many places around the world that are bringing the donut into practice. They're using the donut as a measuring tool. We are attentive to what we measure. If we measure GDP, that's what we seek to grow. If we measure the donut, that's what we seek to achieve. So folks are activating this. In California, I'm part of the California Donut Economics Coalition. We're creating a donut portrait for the state of California. So many folks around the world are working on this through the Donut Action Lab. Very exciting. So that's changing the goal. And I want to uplift one more thing around changing the goal. We've been talking more about the bigger picture, the systemic or the collective. What about for an institution or organization or for an individual? What about for you and your regenerative livelihood path? Kate Rayworth, she says this interesting thing about growth. She says she's growth agnostic, meaning growth as a means to an end and not an end in itself. And so in the institutional or organizational level, one idea or offering that I want to uplift that's one of my favorites is the not-for-profit business model, And Silvia is going to link to a book in the chat around this topic, but these are models where profit and growth is harnessed or redirected for social and environmental good. So it's a hybrid model where there's no owners and shareholders, there's living wages abound, and everyone is stewards, and all of the profit generating activity is redirected or directed for social and environmental good. So this is one of my favorite post-growth economics of the great turning regenerative livelihood models in the realm of changing the goal at the institutional or organizational level. The fourth invitation, and again, in a moment, you'll make sense of these in your own life, and we'll have plenty of times for questions and reflections. But the fourth invitation of an economics of the great turning is for us to reclaim work. So yeah, I saw a lot of like, and hard and difficult. And so I just want to name that, yes, within the growth industrial society, our relationship with our work can feel very difficult, especially when it's utilized for the money making for others, for profit generating, and even when it, in some cases, is contributing to the great unraveling. So what would it mean to reclaim our work? Well, one of the things to uplift I saw in the chat is to widen our sense of understanding of what is work. So to recognize and value work such as care work, so parenting, and care for folks with differing abilities and elderly folks. So recognizing and valuing that as work, that as part of our contribution to the great turning. So that's part of it, as well as our art making, our activism, our food growing. So expanding what is our work, that can feel like a helpful way to reclaim our work. Another thing that I love to explore is the idea of right livelihood. Right livelihood coming from Buddhist economics, from the Eightfold Noble Path in Buddhism, is the invitation to see our work as part of our spiritual path, to see that our right livelihood is where we take our spiritual practice off the cushion and into our day-to-day contributions to the great turning. So to reclaim our work as a right livelihood path is to see it as a journey and not a destination. It's to expand the view of what that work is. It's all the ways that we contribute, again, including our care work and our volunteering and our art making and our activism. And yeah, so it's also bringing in the spiritual into our work and finding all the ways that we can contribute. And for folks thinking, well, what about money and money making? One way that I've found helpful to think of this is to imagine a livelihood garden, a right livelihood garden, that we have many different plants in our right livelihood garden, and that some bear different types of fruit. My art making bears a particular type of fruit, and my activism bears a particular type of fruit. And some work I do by donation, some work I do for money and has financial fruit. And so what are all the fruits in your livelihood garden? What's the relationship between the fruits? Are there companion plants, or are they cross-fertilizing? Are they pollinating? Are they relating to one another? Are there any plants in your livelihood garden that you want to crop, or you want to compost, right? Or that you want to water or help grow? And so some folks, they may need a plant that bears financial fruit, particularly when so many of our needs we have to meet in financialized ways. So what are those plants that you could plant that would bear that financial fruit, but also what are the other plants in your right livelihood garden? So I offer that in case that's a fun, interesting way to think about reclaiming your work. And yeah, the last one around reclaiming work is, I just want to really appreciate this time right now of all of the folks around the world who are unionizing. There's a real reclaiming of work in that regard around the world. Thinking about Starbucks workers in the United States, but many places around the world, folks are rethinking labor or stepping into reclaiming work in that way. But then there's also many ways that people are redesigning workspaces to bring in more democracy and collective decision-making and transparency and more equity. So just to name a few models there, the worker cooperative movement is one way to reclaim work, to see oneself as part of a steward of that work and to have more democracy and transparency in that world. And then if you're in the nonprofit space, the worker self-directed nonprofit, very similar to the worker cooperative, but in the nonprofit space, another way of reclaiming work and changing our relationship to it. There's many others in this realm we could go into too. Maybe at the break, I'm thinking of universal basic income, the 4-day work week, universal basic services. So there's many different interesting ideas and thoughts. But again, an abundance of beautiful invitations of an economics for the great turning in reclaiming our work. And the last one, the last invitation for an economics of the great turning is to reconsider who we are as humans. Reconsider who we are as humans. So what does this mean? A lot of the things that folks brought up when they said their relationship to economics comes from this one view in mainstream economic thinking, this perspective of who we are as humans that can be summarized with the term Homo economicus. Homo economicus. That we as humans are Homo economicus. We are rational, self-interested beings, that we like to work as little as possible. That's called work is a disutility. That we maximize our own self-interest, right? As the economist students would think, no one else would return the envelope. Why should I, right? So rational, self-interested beings. So to reconsider who we are as humans is to say, well, what are the other things that we are? Yes, there's disaster capitalism, but there's also disaster collectivism. There's ways that we turn towards each other in times of crisis and challenge. There's many beautiful stories of this, of disaster collectivism. And one other way to rethink who we are as humans is to go from Homo economicus to Homo donans. Homo donans is a frame coming from the International Feminists from a Gift Economy Network. International Feminists for a Gift Economy Network, who say, actually, we're inherently gift-giving beings. That when we grow up with our family or folks that we grow up with, it's inherently a gift-giving relationship. When we look to nature, I'm thinking of Robin Wall Kimmerer and her work, that nature is inherently gift-giving, right? So there's this reciprocity instead, and more like turn-taking of care. So care is turn-taking and less of exchange. So what if we went from a Homo economicus to a Homo donans? And of course, this too is returning us to being humble members in the web of life, being in the web of life, not dominant over. So this is that reconsider who we are as humans as well, not separate from, right? Not that collection of objects that the folks read about, but a communion of subjects. So last invitation to reconsider who we are as humans. So these are just 5. Again, there are many others. And in a moment, we're going to hear how this resonates with you and for you to make sense of this in your own life. But I want to close with a poem. And then we'll take a short break and have some group time, some groups of 3 or 4, small group time to make sense of this in your own life. What's resonating? What's connecting? What's not resonating? What do you want to try or learn more about? What threads do you want to pick up on? So this is a poem to close this part. So this is a poem that I wrote called Who is the Economist? Just by way of summarizing what I've shared so far. Who is the economist? Economics, Greek oikos nomos, eco oikos, household, home. Nomics, nomos, management, home management. At first, home, domestic, familial, home management. Later, home, national, nation state, home management. Now, home, planet, planetary, Gaia, home management. Now, economics, planetary home management. Economy, the phenomenon of planetary home managing. What for? Not just for the meeting of human needs, not just the meeting of human and more than human needs, the enlivenment of all beings, the self-realization, the thriving of all beings, the flourishing of all beings, including the living earth herself. Economist. So who manages the flourishing of all beings? Those who deeply know our home, the ecologists, the biologists, the physicists, and the gardeners. Those who architect and deliver ways to manage our home, the designers, the lawyers, the public servants, the farmers, those who identify injustice and prevent further harm to our home, the activists, the journalists, the advocates, the whistleblowers, those who heal suffering and guide us towards flourishing, the healers, the psychologists, the mentors, the parents, those who challenge and provoke and illustrate the paradigms and stories of home management, the artists, the elders, the musicians, the spiritual leaders, the teachers, and the poets, those who share the wisdom and love of the universe and remind us of our place in the web of life, the rivers, the winds, trees, fungi, birds, insects, plants, and animals. So if we all help to manage our home, then are we all economists? Or is economics, planetary home managing for the flourishing of all beings, a part of all of us, manifesting through each of our own unique contributions to that flourishing? Perhaps to be an economist is a state of connection, the moment we glimpse the bigger picture, wholeness, harmony, the moment we think holistically and systemically, the moment we appreciate the contribution of all beings to our collective flourishing, the moment we sense into the conditions of our home managing, the qualities, the emergent properties, the suffering, the joy, the dis-ease, and the hope coming through the tugs in the web of life. To be an economist is to respond each in our own way with our own gifts, our shadows, and our histories, to live for a locus beyond oneself, to act on behalf of the living whole for the flourishing of all beings, to be an abundance manager, an eco-sattva, a life protector, a life enabler, and above all, a humble member in the co-creation of our shared journey in this moment of this universe. So some thoughts and reflections on economics.
Wow, thank you, Della. And, what a wealth of, knowledge and sharings, and what a beautiful poem. Yeah, do you think it's a good time for a break, Della? And we can come back for breakout rooms so people can reflect?
Yeah, we would love to give folks a chance to stretch your legs and, hydrate and, water in, water out, whatever is needed. And while you do that, we will set up the breakout room so that when we return, we can be ready for that. So maybe if we come back in 4 minutes, is that okay? So just a quick break.
Yeah, but before you go, I just want to say, because I saw many questions in the chat, we are going to have breakout rooms. Those of you who were not able to join, that's okay. I can put you in a different room and you just stay there for that time, reflecting. And many of the resources that Della has shared are going to be sent to you after the webinar in a follow-up email. So don't worry about that. Okay, so let's go for a 4 minutes break, and we're going to come back here in 4 minutes. I'm going to stop the recording and you're going to stop your cameras. Please come back because we're going to be having conversations. So next hours is all about interaction. Thank you. So welcome back, everybody. And my name is Silvia, by the way. I think I at the beginning when I was introducing Della, I just failed to introduce myself. I'm Silvia, the coordinator, one of the coordinators of the Work That Reconnects Network, also a Work That Reconnects facilitator, and I'm so happy to be here with Della, with whom I share so many different livelihoods, right livelihoods. So it's very, very honoring to be with you here, Della. And I also want to share with all of you that, the topics that Della is just touching the tip of the ice, like you say, the iceberg. Those topics are going to be explored further in a course in one of the organizations where Della facilitates, which is the economic dimension or economic design in Gaia Education. I'm going to share that with you, and all of you will have discounts in case you want to join that course, which is 8 weeks exploring all about economics in the way that Della has been presenting this. Della and I also are going to be having the joy of sharing a course about the right livelihood and how to design regenerative livelihoods for you and your community. So with that, I pass it back to you, Della. So we're going to have the discussions right now. Can you share with them what we're going to be doing?
Yes. So I shared a lot, and perhaps it felt like a flood or maybe just a mist, who knows? But now I want you to make sense of this in your own lives and experience. And again, feel free to interrogate, question, and challenge, but also to, see what resonated and what you might want to take with you going forth, what invitations you might want to try on. So we're going to go into breakout rooms. Silvia, if you can set them up for us, that'd be much appreciated. And the invitation is for you all to set your internal timers to about 3 minutes each, to introduce yourself to your fellow Work That Reconnects comrades and friends, and then to share, to make sense of what you've heard today and what it means in your own life. So what's resonating for you, what's not resonating, and what questions are remaining for you. So economics, we can get very heady and abstract. Well, what about crypto and with the 4-way work week? But let's bring it into our own experience. Like, how are we participating in economics, and how could these invitations support our work in the Great Turning? So again, 3 minutes each. How are you making sense of what I shared? What might you take with you as you go forth, and what questions remain? Yeah, Silvia?
Yeah, I was going to suggest that more than the 3 minutes each, the overall that you want, because some of the groups are 4 people and some of the groups are 3. So do we want in general 15 minutes?
Yeah,
for all the discussion?
Let's do 15 minutes and still try to set your internal timer to 3. But yeah, if you have more than 3, just make sure that everyone gets a chance to share. So again, your name, and then make sense of what it was offered in your own life. And then when we come back, that's when we can share with one another and ask more questions and discuss.
Yeah, and I will prompt you when we have 5 and 1 minute left, so you know more or less when we are coming back, okay? So I'm opening the rooms right now, and you can accept going into your rooms. If for whatever reason you don't want to participate in the discussion, you just mute yourself, do your thing, and you can turn your camera off, okay? But if you have more than 2 people not participating in a group, let me know so I can rearrange the groups. Okay, opening the rooms now. Welcome, everybody.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Just giving folks another minute to arrive.
Yeah, we're recording again. Welcome back.
Beautiful.
Okay. So what we are going to be doing now, so we have about 45 minutes left in the webinar, in the call. This is the time to interact and to share questions, opinions, experiences, etc. And well, I wanted to open with a few questions for Della, because I share a passion for the regenerative livelihood with Della. I'm not so dedicated to the cause as Della is, but we share this passion, and my approach to this is usually from the social justice perspective. So one of the questions that I have for you, Della, is in the right livelihood, there are so many choices that we can make, to make it the right livelihood, as you say in your article, very well written. And my question is, how do we make our own right livelihood, so those who may not have the choice to choose a right livelihood because of privilege levels, to put in more clear, choosing the right livelihood is a privilege. And it's, it's in this economy that we have, in this system that we currently have, it is a privilege to say, I'm going to choose the right livelihood. So how can we create a right livelihood for ourselves that also increases the possibility of the right livelihood for others who may not have that privilege right now?
Yeah, beautiful question. So one thing that I love to reflect on and offer to others who are wondering what their right livelihood calling is related to a quote by Frederick Buechner. And the quote is that, our right livelihood is the place where the world's deepest hunger meets our deepest gladness. Our right livelihood is the place where the world's deepest hunger meets our deepest gladness. And so related to this, it's, where is that heartbreak in you? Where's that world's hunger that shows up in you? What is it, the cause that you care about, right? The open sentence in the Work That Reconnects, when I think about what's happening in the world, what breaks my heart is, right? And then connecting that with our deepest joy and gladness. Where is it that we come alive? Where do we step into flow or thrive? And for me, it really is that point, Silvia, of inequality. Inequality is what breaks my heart. And so this question of providing access for everyone to be able to cultivate right livelihood, to see their work as part of their spiritual path, and to feel integrity and an alignment with their work and their values means working with individuals on how they could create that, but it also means working systemically. So a few invitations that I find really helpful in this question of how do we cultivate, how do we reduce inequality and bring in more equity, and then allow folks to be able to have more right livelihood. I'm thinking of the reparations movements and land tax and giving lands back to Indigenous folks. I'm thinking of reductions in pay scale so that there's not so great a difference between those who are making money and those at the top who are making money, right? That piece. Again, universal basic services and universal access to commons. These are things that would support folks to be able to have their needs met and then really liberate them to be able to have more right livelihood, more time, and more ability to contribute to the things that they really care about. A universal basic income would be another thing that would give us more access to right livelihood. And as well as a global minimum wage, a debt jubilee for the global South, right? There's many different things that would really, really support this piece. Taking away corporate personhood, that's another one that I saw people really uplift in the chat. So yeah, these are just some of the ways that would give us more of an ability. And if folks want an even deeper take on work, really interesting take, there's a book by Sarah Jaffe called Work Won't Love You Back: How Our Jobs Keep Us Exploited, Exhausted, and Alone. So it was very interesting. I got to interview her view on work and the description and history of work, meeting my enthusiasm and passion for right livelihood. So, how do we reclaim work, I think, is this ultimate point, and not just for ourselves, but as you're saying so beautifully, Silvia, to allow for more and more people to have right livelihood in their lives and contribute in the ways that they want. Also, valuing and supporting care work, right? A feminist economic recovery plan for COVID-19 would be something that would liberate folks in terms of their right livelihood after COVID. So just a few ideas, but yes, excellent question.
Thank you, Della.
I see Kelly,
Yeah.
your hand, or go ahead, Silvia.
Yeah. No, I was going to actually invite people to start sharing what you discussed in your groups and any emerging questions. And so, yes, go ahead, Kelly. You can unmute yourself and ask your question. Kelly, I think you are in an iPhone. Can you unmute yourself? Or do you?
Well, there we go. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Kelly. Good to meet you.
Yeah, so nice to meet you as well. Thank you for all of your efforts on our behalf to help bring these things to our attention. One of the things we talked about in our group, and I think it comes up in the conversation that was had right before this around social justice, is if the systems that we are trying to get people equal access to are inherently violent, is that necessarily I mean, I'm sure, I mean, in my own heart, I know the answer is both and, that we need to get out of these systems. I think something that fundamentally we kind of get wrong is that we spend a lot of energy trying to fix broken systems, but the systems aren't broken. This is exactly how they were intended to run. And so at what point are we going to be able to leave the system? And maybe that is where the power lies. And even having this notion of gross, measuring the company's wealth or the country's wealth based on happiness. These are still money-based metrics, which are inherently rooted in separation. So I know this is not an easy, it's a very gray area, but I think it's important to add to the conversation. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I think one way that I reflect on that is whenever I'm given a new idea or concept or tool, I ask myself, is this accommodating to capitalism and to the growth industrial society, or is it moving us towards a post-capitalist world or an economics of the great turning? And it can be gray, as you're saying, and sometimes there can even be nuances. Like there's ways that a universal basic income can actually support and uphold capitalism, and there's ways that it can move us to a post-capitalist economy, just for example, but anything, worker cooperatives and other ideas too. So excellent question and frame to bring us into, what is helping us just accommodate the unraveling, and what is helping us move towards a post-capitalist, post-industrial growth society economy. Great question.
Yeah.
Eve,
and Kelly.
Yeah. Go ahead, Silvia, go ahead.
Yeah, before Eve goes, Kelly, I also invite you because some of the questions are really profound, and we may not be able in this, short time to respond to that. Those are questions, to explore and, and to continue working, because it's a matter, like you say, and I don't believe in leaving the system. I think, the system is there. We need to actually crush it and, and create a new one. So my suggestion is, going for something longer. And I just posted one course that Della co-facilitates with another gifted facilitator that you can explore, but I also share groups and, share communities where you explore this question and you explore the things that you can be doing. So it's not a short answer that we are going to get here. So Eve, go ahead.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I was just looking at what Mada said in the chat, and that's part of what I wanted to say. I think that there's this, it seems like, increasing pace of upheaval with climate and pandemic and isolation and political stratification, that this is an incredible opportunity as well as a really scary time. And I think that the key is connecting with each other, because we're just so conditioned to be isolated and staying at home and yelling at our television rather than, taking action and connecting and talking with each other. So that just feels like the most encouraging thing to me from today, is that sense that it's really possible to use our resources, whatever they might be, whether they're privilege or land or money or our work, to just always be doing what needs to be done right now. So.
Thank you, Eve. And I really encourage you to explore one of the articles that Della wrote about the done economics used in community, because that could be, one of the ways, that you engage with your community. So thank you for that. River, what a beautiful name. Go ahead.
Thank you. Well, it's a privilege to be here with everyone. It's amazing. I was curious about the root words of managing, because I wonder, to me, the term resonates with power over and wanting to control things. And I was thinking, well, one of the other options, like, what if we had an economy that wasn't about managing our households, but co-creating with them? If we're in a living system, we're not really managing anything. And I know that sounds esoteric, but it matters a lot to me. And I wonder, what would it really be like if we worked with the earth for real? It's beyond my imagination at the moment in a lot of ways. But in traditional societies, there were people who spoke to animals and plants and the elements. That was a real ability. And if we recognize those communities again as equal to us, no, I mean, the possibilities are immense. So yeah, I'm just wondering. Yeah, how do we get there from here?
Yeah, thank you for that, River. I don't know if you're familiar with Jeremy Lent, but he talks about, the patterning instinct and, how important language and metaphors, are in society because they shape how we behave and the choices that we make. And when Della was doing the word association and, the word game, associating, the ice cream and the work, and what we were actually coming up were metaphors and ideas that we have about things. So when you're talking about, how we consider animals and, and plants and, and the rest of the world, and how do we define or use management, I'm thinking of that. I'm thinking about the associations and the language and the metaphors that we have, and what Jeremy Lent also calls, and I don't think it's his, but it's called human supremacy. This concept of humans being the species, and the rest is below. And I think just changing that, and that is changing already. So I would say changing the language, changing the metaphors, changing the patterns. Thank you for that, River.
Thank you.
And one metaphor that I love that's very near and dear to me is called the upstream metaphor. And it's a metaphor that I've heard from public health, but essentially you imagine you're standing at the bank of a river and you see people who are floating by, who are drowning. So you jump in to save them and pull them to shore. And then you look up and you see more and more people floating down the river drowning. So you jump in and pull them to shore. And eventually there's so many people floating down the river drowning that you have to go upstream to figure out why is everyone falling in the first place. And I love this metaphor in relation to economics, because I look at inequality and climate change and ecological devastation and war, and I say, what happens when we go upstream? What are those root causes? And absolutely on that journey, I have found, well, Joanna Macy being a beautiful teacher on this upstream journey, as well as many others, but the supremacy over, right? Capital supremacy over workers. We have anthropocentrism, the human supremacy over nature, white supremacy, right? Patriarchal supremacy. So all the supremacies, the power overs, and then upstream from that, separation, seeing ourselves as separate from. So then that reconnection, the work that reconnects, seeing ourselves as part of the web of life, as part of a communion of beings, right? Then that leads to a economics of collaboration and solidarity and interbeing instead of supremacy and domination. And so for me, as a renegade economist, I didn't really share my own right livelihood garden, but leading the work that reconnects is a critical aspect of it, because leading the work that reconnects is such an upstream journey of the changes in the paradigm, drawing from systems thinking, indigenous wisdom traditions, and other eco-spiritual traditions that then will affect and address those downstream problems that we're facing today. So just bringing that frame in as well.
Thank you, Della. And upstream is also the name of your podcast. Okay, Diana, go ahead.
I was just going to interject when River had asked how do we get from here to there, which is a lot of what I was asking Shauna in my conversation in the breakout group. And Shauna just had some great ideas that I will share. She said, you know, our work is to stay curious and to surrender, but not to resist, to be open to the discomfort of changes that are coming. But we don't necessarily have to have the plan of how the entire big picture is going to resort itself. I guess I liked that presencing of the concept of being and the way of the feminine, which is the way of nature. So it's not like we have to have a systems plan for how to do this impossible thing. It's about being open, being ready to plug in when our turn is given or when a way is shown for us to plug in, and to stay curious, and also to surrender to the discomforts and the adaptations that we need to make. That's what I wanted.
Thank you. Thank you, Diana. I agree with you. At the same time, I want to bring up the 3 dimensions of the great turning. There is no just one right way, you know, so yes, surrender, yes, you know, to go with the flow and see what emerges, but also sometimes, you know, to remember that one of the signs of one of the dimensions of the great turning is the hand that says no and stops, because sometimes you do have to stop the destruction and, you know, and to say no. But thank you for that.
And I'll add an experience of flow to your point, Diana, is upon graduating from Schumacher College, Satish Kumar, who's the lead teacher there, said, I don't want any of you to get a job. I want you to cultivate a right livelihood. And so if you looked at like jobs after graduation for Schumacher College, it's probably abysmal in the classic sense. But the cultivation of right livelihood, I would say, is something that folks really try to bring on. And for me, the experience was exactly what you're describing. It was stepping into flow. I don't have like a master plan and I'm trying to like a business plan, or like, I'm more like saying yes to things as they come. The great turning towards life in every opportunity and thing. So it's very emergent and it's very in the flow. And I really had a sense of stepping into a river like flow, of saying yes to, you know, being of service and being a part of the great turning. And sometimes that generates financial abundance and sometimes that doesn't, you know, but it takes radical trust as well to step into the flow and also to ask for what we need. I think that's another aspect of it. So just want to share that. Anyone else want to share any thoughts, feelings, anything else you heard in the group? I love that folks are uplifting what they heard from others.
Or questions about any one of the 5 invitations from Della at the beginning of the webinar, or any one of the concepts. And remember, don't raise your hand like this because we may not see all of you. Use the button where it says reactions, and you can raise your hand there. Osvaldo.
Thank you for this amazing webinar. My question is about fear. I think most of this system is driven by fear. I guess that's connected with what you were saying about separation as the upstream or root causes. But in a more practical term, sometimes we continue in this mode of hoarding and achieving, trying to get profit out of fear of not having enough in the future, not having enough for my retirement, not having enough for my children. What if I get sick? And then, I mean, the uncertainty of life make us, we need really to, it's not that I am in greed, but I am just want to make sure everything is taken care. So how do you deal with that practicality and that fear that might be driving the attitude of and the practice, the lifestyle of accumulating and being part of the capitalist industrial growth system?
Yeah, thank you. And I mean, my view is that the fear is understandable. and very real in our current economic system. One of the greatest teachers on this topic to me is Charles Eisenstein in his book Sacred Economics, because he shares this this idea that a lot of folks will say, oh, well, just practice abundance or think about abundance and it'll manifest. And that there's a danger to that when we look structurally at our current economic systems, that precariousness and a sense of scarcity is actually very real. It's very baked into how our money is created, for example, that it's deaded into existence, but also that there are very few positions at the top, so to speak. Like there is a scarcity of some things in our current economic system. And as more and more of our commons are privatized and, we have to have more and more of our needs be met in financialized ways, it's very real. So I'm just normalizing and saying, yes, I hear you. We hear you to that fear and that it's real. And I think where I go then is looking at the systemic solutions or the systemic changes that would take away that fear, that they, just as the system, designed by the human mind, mano maya, can be undesigned by the human mind. There are ways that we can design for abundance, design for sharing. One example that comes to mind is as we think to the ways that the global north will need degrowth, right? Degrowth in terms of energy and also of consumption of materials, that a 4-day work week might be a very supportive thing, so that folks don't feel precarious and suddenly lose their employment and their livelihoods and their work, but that we distribute that and then we all benefit from having more leisurely time. So that's one example of a systemic change that we could look to. But as well as turning towards, again, universal basic services and the ways that we can feel into the abundance of commons and of meeting our needs. If somebody were to ask me, what's the one thing I can invest in right now? I'm thinking about that regenerative finance aspect of today, I would say invest in community, invest in community. This idea that, as we can have in a disaster capitalism, so can we have disaster collectivism. So that disaster collectivism is that great turning, it's that turning towards one another. So if you were to invest right now, invest in your neighbor and your relationships with one another, your mutual aid and your solidarity and those connections. That way, in times of difficulty, the antidote to that fear will be that localized connection. So I just want to offer that. And then personally, whenever I'm in that kind of fear space, I turn again towards that web of life meditation from the Work That Reconnects. The meditation that each of us are connected as in a web of life, strands connecting each of us. And that line that Joanna Macy offers, the line, there is nowhere we can go where we are not held in this web of life. There is nowhere we can go where we are not held in the web of life. So when I get overwhelmed by the fear or despair or discouragement, I feel like I can rest into at least that sense of we're not alone, that there's a great web of being that's supporting us right now. So just want to share that, but I'm totally happy to hear from other folks how you're dealing with this sense of fear and scarcity, because as I said, it's very real.
Yeah, thank you for that, Della. And we have some other questions. I just want to add to that, Osvaldo, that yes, the fear is very real, but partially has been built, in this system. So the fear moves you because that's the way that, you buy insurance or, save for retirement and, many things that if you had community, like Della was saying, you may not need. So the fear is real, but partially is also built into the system. So you can actually reject part of that fear because it's not that part is more a perception that is, brought to you so you can buy things or you can do things in a certain way. And we have Fernanda. Fernanda, go ahead.
Hi, Della. Thanks so much. Kind of already answered the question I had with that very eloquent response to Osvaldo. My question was kind of along the lines of that and how you envision the care economy coming to connecting to the real economy, and what vision do you see for actually providing help to people who are in caretaker roles? I recently I graduated and I haven't gotten a profitable job, and I've just been taking care of my grandma. And my mom's very worried about my financial future. And I know that comes from a place of fear. But I'm just like kind of hoping, what is the future you envision for people who really want to just live that simple life and care for our family members and care for the earth and tend a garden? How do you see that transformation?
Yeah. Well, first, I want to appreciate you for your work right now during this time of the Great Turning. That care work is work that you're doing, and just, express appreciation and gratitude for that. And I wouldn't draw from my own vision on this, but I'm sharing in the chat. I got to work on a podcast documentary about feminist economics, which is one thread of this piece. And I got to speak to activists and folks in Hawaii who have created something called the Feminist Economics Recovery Plan for COVID-19. So I would really turn towards their visioning on this, but they really look towards how, care work particularly has been impacted by COVID, just as so many parents have come into being, teachers as well as parents and workers, as well as caretaking for others. So their feminist economic recovery plan to COVID-19 is very extensive and has a lot of really beautiful ideas for how we can move towards this. And there's a whole movement of this too. There's there's folks for housework to become work. There's movements of that. Again, a universal basic income would support care work as well. There's that piece too. So I think there's a psychological and societal valuing of that work. And then there's the, how do we collectively meet our needs, right? Again, that universal basic services, access to the commons, how can those uplift that work? And then, there's other ways too in that document of other people sharing, but it's a really beautiful and important question. And again, thank you for the work you're doing.
Thank you. Linda.
My comment is with respect to number 5, reconsider who we are as humans in the web of life. I'm also, in addition to Joanna Macy's work, I'm also connected with Pro-Social World, in which we look at how humans have evolved to be cooperative. And so I'm thinking about how other communities, how great it is that so many communities are working on these, working on this same issue of solving our fears, like how are we going to make it into this next chaotic, make it through this next, how is the earth going to make it through this next chaotic, but that maybe humans do have this pro-social, this willingness, this desire to cooperate, and how we can do it. And so lots of groups are working on this. So I have become encouraged. People studying how the commons, how we share the commons, and how we can share the commons, and how humans have been sharing for thousands of years, and just reconnecting with our history of being able to share. That's
Thank you so much, Linda. That's very helpful. And just to uplift that point, one of the assumptions underlying mainstream economics is that we as humans cannot manage commons. It's called the tragedy of the commons. Some of you may be familiar. And the idea is that actually that's not true, right? That there's many communities who have managed commons effectively. And I know this is part of the work that reconnects the commons game, right? There's an activity related to that point, but also just to uplift the work of Eleanor Ostrom, who did a lot of work on how it is that communities around the world are managing commons successfully. So absolutely, thank you for bringing that into reconsidering who we are as humans. And may we water the more collaborative, altruistic, and communicative sides of us, and demonstrate that we can manage commons and share and give effectively. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you. And we had, is Jewel or is
It's
the middle
Julie.
name? Julie, okay, it's the spelling. Okay, and I just wanted to say, after you, Julie, we may have one or two more comments or questions, and we're gonna be doing the closing. So go ahead, Julie.
First of all, thank you profoundly, Della and Silvia, both individually and collectively, what you're bouncing around amongst us. It's tremendous. Thank you. My question is around the balance of having the support of a local hub, whether that is one other person or 5 other people, and the work that you do in the bigger picture. So one area that I'm interested in is income sharing communities. And both from the type that I've seen in the East Vancouver network, where they have lots of homes, and the full-on sort of eco-village like Twin Oaks or others like those. There are not many outside of the hippie style in Australia. In fact, I haven't been able to find more than one, which is 5 families in Adelaide. I'm hoping to visit some in the States. I'm wondering if you're able to put me onto anything. I'm well aware of the networks like GEN and FIC and FEC, the Federation of Eco Villages and the Federation of Intentional. I'm aware of all of those. But if you know of any, or if you have leads or ideas on living intentionally in these small hubs to give us the strength and the power to then go and do what we need to do so that we come back daily to this juice of power. Yes, power with. I would be really grateful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thanks for the work you're doing. And I hope there's a way that you're sharing out what you're learning, because it sounds really fascinating. Silvia, I might turn to you because I know that you're part of some eco-village work at Gaia, and you might be able to answer this more clearly.
Yeah. I wouldn't be able to, share anything beyond, Jen. Jen is the Global Eco Village Network, or, the work that and FIC, the I don't remember exactly the name, but it's intentional communities. But my suggestion, Julie, is that you join any network where there are similar ideas and needs. And when I see that, one of the things that you can join is the Work That Reconnects Network, and join the forum, for example, and put that question out, because beyond those 2 organizations, there may be other things happening, or there may be interests of people, trying to put that together. So that would be my suggestion, and just put that word out there, because there may be other people that we are not.
Silvia, I am a facilitator in WTR, but yes, I have not participated in the actual list that you're talking about. I can see that Stacey has asked how we join that. So if you can put a link up there, that would be tremendous.
I will. So if you're going to receive a follow-up after this webinar, probably on Monday, when we have the recording, and I will be sharing many resources there related to what Della mentioned, but also to the Work That Reconnects for those of you who are not yet in the network, as part of the community, because that's the best way, to connect with others and to share those initiatives and all those questions. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay.
What I will share, I just want to share that I do know someone who did live in one of those communities where everyone pooled their income. They took out income as needed. I think it was like you could take out money if it was up to about $500 value. Anything over that, you had to ask permission. And then at the end of the year, the community donated any money that was left over. So they did not, they started the new year with 0 money. So a really interesting, community model. I do remember it was difficult for them when they left the community because they had no savings or nothing to continue them on, but the experience of it was really beautiful and full of trust, and really asked the question of how do we assign value and why is it that some folks make so much more than others. So if you want something tangentially related to that, I just offer the time bank model. That's something that radically makes everyone's hour equal, and there's many time banks around the world that you can join for that. And then as well as other sharing economy models like a childcare collective where folks take care of children rotating without paying any money, but sharing the resources and building community for children, as well as share shops, which I mentioned. So libraries of things. That's another way that people are sharing resources instead of buying one of everything. I think I learned that the average drill is only used 2 minutes in its entire lifetime. So thanks for, planting the seed of different gift economy and sharing economy models that we can look into. Thank you.
Yeah. And if you join one of the courses that Della, is facilitating, or, the one that we are facilitating, we're going to explore that a lot. I just, when you were talking, Della, I was thinking in what Satish Kumar said, that every time he was in a pilgrimage, walking, he would go without money. And the reason is because when you are without money, you have to approach people, you have to build relationships. So for me, that's the learning, when there's no money, you are forced to build those relationships. So that's the beauty of it. Okay, we had 2 more people, and then we're going to be closing because we're approaching the end of the webinar. So Beth, and then Veronica.
So I just want to say briefly, I think part of the conversation that's needed is to have a conversation or address the spiritual or emotional injuries of unregulated mainstream capitalism, that there's such a tendency to internalize failure of not making ends meet, without the recognition that there are built-in hardships and a rigging of the system. So I just wanted to put that out there because you don't hear about that recognition, that acknowledgement that people are doing this to themselves when it's really systemic.
Thank you so much, Beth. And I'll even take it to the flip side of that, which is looking at what if extreme wealth was as offensive as racism, right? And if we look for capitalism in the historical sense, we recognize, as Marx would say, primitive accumulation, that those who have extreme wealth, if we trace it through time, it came from slavery, indigenous land theft, or extractivism, destruction of ecosystems. So we can trace the extreme wealth to those, those points of primitive accumulation. So just the opposite too, that, those who have tons, it's, not that they made it or that, but what does that mean in a world where there's people who don't have enough, right? What are the ethics of that?
Thank you. Veronica, you're the last one. You're muted. You had to unmute.
Hello. Yes, I'm sorry. Hi. Thank you. Well, I am Mexican, and I am right now in Mexico. And I've known about this work, and I spent. The thing is more on a personal level. I joined this webinar on a very, very personal, individual level. And my question right now, what is going on within me, it's about guilt or kind of a shame, and I just was hesitating to ask, but I here I am. So it is I taught, and I included the Work That Reconnects years ago in my teaching in the university, and then I worked in a nonprofit in environmental. So I've been there, and I enjoyed, I believed, I saw great things happen, I saw terrible things happening. But recently, and I mean years, 5 years ago, I started doing things for on an individual level, growing older and being Mexican and caring about, wait a minute, how can I make this economics or joining the stream of the way that this will unravel in terms of a healthier and a more equal, and all these things about the work that connects and the great turning, but more on individual level. How can it work for me? Is it going to work for me? Just like if I'm on an airplane and I would have to wear the mask first in order to tell the others, including my own kids who are 22 now, and you know, this is what you should. So I'm doing that, and I've known, I don't know if it's in my Catholic background and it's all around my country, or if it's just me, but how do you deal? Is there any more of you out there dealing with kind of a guilt in terms of, I'm trying to look for myself now, like if I am trying to make a healthier economy for myself in terms of wanting and to enjoy a life that I can enjoy of the benefits of health or a nice house, or which I don't have, but and if is that sometimes I'm wondering, should I be doing more if I'm just waiting and having a calmer life? I'm not working my 40 or 50 hours in terms of the community or for others or for the great turning. It's kind of a question out there of, is there any reading or anything else, any activity or anything you could suggest to ease and to be more healthy in my own ways or in my own self, in order to then make that naturally, maybe even without me wanting it to happen, but observing just by living it. I guess something around that.
Thank you, Veronica. And that's a huge topic that you opened there. And my suggestion, I mean, we don't have a lot of time, but my suggestion is, you know, we don't, and I use these not just for this particular question of you, but anything related to social justice, or, you know, whether we do the thing for ourselves or for others, or a mix, you know, or what is our privilege, or are we acting out of fear? And the thing is that, you know, every time that we act from shame or blame, you know, it's not good for us, it's not good for anybody. So I would say, you know, just shake the shame, shake the blaming of, you know, whether you are working more on yourself right now and whether you feel guilt about that. And everything in life is a flow, you know, it's a phase. We are never stuck. And I don't think you are going to be stuck in that phase right now. It's just a phase in your life, which is part of the feeling overwhelmed. If you gave too much and you are in a moment in your life when you say, well, I really need to put my mask on because I have been putting the mask, you know, on others for so many years, that is okay. So I will leave it like that. I know it's a very, you know, it's a big topic and it's something that you probably want to explore with others. But because of the timing, we're gonna leave it there. And yeah, it's a phase, you know, just flow with it and see what brings to you. Okay. Well, it's yeah,
okay,
Della, go ahead.
Silvia, I just want to add to one of the things I've come across, a graph that I found helpful is it's called the Kahneman curve from economics, and it's a graph where you have happiness on one axis and income on the other, and the curve goes like that, meaning when one doesn't have their basic needs met, more income does equal more happiness. So just to validate that until a certain point, more money does equal more happiness in our current economic system, meaning we have financialized ways of meeting those needs, and then it plateaus. So I offer that because it's inspiring to me to think about enoughness, like that there are places where we can have enough and sufficiency, but it's also helpful for me to know that there are times when we still need to access material and other resources, financial resources, to meet our needs so that we're able to serve. So I think Right Livelihood reframes self-care and the meeting of our needs so that we can be of service in the Great Turning, but we're not able to do that if those needs aren't met. So one of the ways to do this is look at the needs in your life and ask yourself, what are the needs that need to be met financially? What are the needs that you can meet in creative ways, like that income sharing or a childcare collective or share shop? And then for the needs that you do have to meet financially, what is that number? What is that sense of enoughness for you? And then work with that livelihood garden to find those plants that are, helpful for the environment, that do offer that financial fruit, while tying them possibly to the other livelihood plants that offer different types of fruit. So just want to offer that. But thank you for that beautiful sharing and the vulnerability and courage in sharing it.
Thank you, Della. Okay, so we are a little bit over the timing, so I just want to thank everybody and share again. We're going to be sharing the follow-up with many of the links and the resources and the quotes that Della mentioned during the webinar. Plus, we're going to also be sharing opportunities for you, those of you who want to continue exploring this topic. Like I say, there's a course with Della that starts in just 1 week, right, Della? It's a course on the economic dimension, Gaia Education, that is part of a bigger course. If you want to explore there are scholarship, partial and full scholarships available as well. So you just will receive that information and the discount. And there is also many other ways and resources that we're going to be sharing. I also want to remind you that we have this webinars program under the gift economy, and that you can go to the Work That Reconnects Network website and see many other events and webinars that will be happening in the next few months. And if you don't have the experience of the Work That Reconnects, I really invite you to look at the events that are being offered by different facilitators of the Work That Reconnects through our network. You can also do a donation, make a donation if you feel that this was very helpful for you and you are able to do so. And I would like to all of you to say one last word, so you can unmute yourself and just say one word of how you're living today.
Grateful.
Hopeful.
Richer.
Oh. Restful.
Curious.
Energized.
Appreciation.
Connected.
Inspired.
Full up.
Encouraged.
Grateful. Motivated.
Thankful.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Beautiful. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Blessings on your journey. Be well.
Gracias. Hasta pronto.